You guys know me, I love experiments, and that's how we learn, is by trying different things. So today I've got my Banshee Paradox set up in Enduro Light mode. Geometry's exactly the same as how I normally run it, but I put my XC race wheels on it. We're gonna test my theory that changing your wheels can make your bike feel like a completely different bike. A lot of people buy 1 or 2 or 3 different bikes, and I think you might just be able to buy 2 different wheel sets to get a completely different ride experience. So today we're gonna be testing this bike out with ultralight wheels, ultra low profile tires, and see what it's like on my trails in Sedona. Tire pressure is essential, and I can't go quite as low with narrow rims like this. These are 25 mil internal rims. I do have cush core in the back though, because I don't trust this tire, and I'm curious what the cush core ride's like. It's funny, you'd think removing half a pound anywhere on your bike would feel the same, but it actually doesn't. So if you're trying to remove weight, the most strategic place to remove it is at the wheels and tires. Wheels and tires are always rotating, and we call that rotational weight. And anytime you can reduce rotational weight, you feel it when you accelerate, when you brake, when you pedal. Since it's spinning and not just being carried along by the wheels. And I can definitely feel that these are lighter. It's not blowing my mind yet, but we'll see. Oh boy, you feel it there. When you lift that front wheel up, front wheel is significantly lighter. That's interesting. So yeah, while we lost a little bit of weight on this bike, it's mostly on the wheels in the most noticeable area. It feels maybe 15, maybe 20% easier to pedal up the climbs. I would argue that running ultralight wheels like this is more important than running an ultralight frame, especially if the geometry is compromised. It's really cool having aggressive geometry with an XC pedally feel. I've always thought XC bikes should be more like this. I think it'd be more fun to ride. Cool combination, haven't really felt this before. The bike has a peppiness and a zip to it that it doesn't normally have. And I can hold a higher speed just spinning along here without tiring out as much. Oh, this has a lively ride. Whew. This is a tricky climb. That was good. It's interesting, I'm not as winded at the top of the climbs as I used to be. I definitely feel a difference though. This bike is a little bit more peppy, almost nervous. It's got a smaller contact patch on the ground, and you can feel that. When you turn the bars, it's like there's so little grip, it doesn't really, there's no drag there. And it just feels more efficient. It is noticeable. I like it. Able to keep speed up this a lot faster than normal. Great on the climbs at least. Got a monster climb coming up, and it's a really hot day in Sedona. That's not as hard as it should have been. Wow, way less fatiguing. I mean, we knew it would be, but I didn't think it'd make this big of a difference. I lose my momentum less, so I'm able to just keep on pushing through. Yeah, that's surprising. If you've ever ridden a motorcycle, a dirt bike with a steering damper, that's what this feels like with regular tires, plus tires and 29 by 2.5s. It kind of dampens steering, so it's a little more calm. With the smaller contact patch, the front wheel is lighter and feels like it's easier to turn and change direction for better or for worse. On the ups, it hasn't been a problem, but I never realized how much energy was spent pushing against a grippy tire for balance. I push on this and it turns the bars instead of gives me balance. I don't know if that makes sense. Like wide tires, I can kind of use the tire for traction for side-to-side balance, but not right now. This makes you feel like a beast on the climbs. It does give this bike a different personality. It's got that element of sketchiness. Feels like tires are overinflated even though they're not. I definitely love wide rims and wide tires, but this has a different feel. I think if I lived in the East Coast or the Midwest where there's some rolly, flowy stuff, I'd have a bike with fun geo like this, with an ultralight wheel set like this. Wow, I'm done with the climb already. Did not expect that. That's pretty cool. That's way less effort than I remembered. Okay, I'm not surprised there was a difference on the climbs. I'm a little bit surprised at how big of a difference it is. And the XTR and SRAM play together really nicely. That's no problem. Now let's see how it does on some downhill. Well, these wheels are far stiffer than my Zips. It almost feels like the difference between 29 and 27.5 all over again. So because of the minimal tread and the narrower width, it is sketchier on this stuff. It brings back a little bit of the nervousness of an XC bike. Not in geometry, just in traction and handling. Even though this Banshee is a compliant frame, whew, sketchy. It's beating me up a lot more with these stiff race wheels. Even with the cush core and lower pressures. Getting a lot more vibrations passed on to me. So don't overlook your wheels when you're fine-tuning your ride qualities you want. Okay, there I hit a rock. Felt the cush core bottom out. I'm glad I got it. I was wondering if I should lower my pressure, but now I know the answer is no. It's just amazing how little input you have to give it to pick up speed. There's another hit on the cush core. Glad I have it. But man, for Northern California, this could be a really cool setup where most of your stuff's flowy, not too rocky and loose like this. Woo! I'm getting the beat down on my body though. This is stiff. NBs are stiff. They're known for being stiff. And I thought having 24 holes would, and I thought having 24 spokes would make it less stiff. I don't know, it's pretty friggin' stiff. It doesn't feel stiff on that spot though. So full suspension, I'm a fan of these wheels. On the hardtail, on this stuff, it's too stiff. So I'm actually really glad I didn't have my hardtail with these wheels on my 60-mile ride. That would have beat me up and worn me out. So without a doubt, Nobby Nicks and Racing Ralph's are some of the worst tires for Sedona. So this isn't purely scientific, but where I'm really feeling it is braking, very little braking traction. Coming off an Assegai that brakes extremely well, I grab the brakes and very little happens. And it's not the brakes, it's the tires. I think a lot of people forget that. They think, oh, this bike has awful brakes, when in reality, it's the tires that aren't gripping for them. I would love to go a little bit lower in pressure to have a softer ride and have more grip, but I can't. I've already hit the cush core twice in the back, and I can't go much lower in the front. Like all things and all advice that I give, it depends on where you live and where you ride. Flowy, hard pack, twisty trails that don't have a lot of rocks, man, this would be a killer setup. I don't know why you'd need more traction than this. Out here in the desert or Utah or Colorado, I don't think I'd recommend this wheel set for that stuff. Now, if you have 2 wheel sets, sure, throw it on for your long days when you want to just spin and cover some ground. It's a really neat feeling. Let's see how this does downhill though before I come to any conclusions about downhill. Pretty sweet to have the same geometry that I'm used to, and the only change be wheels and tires. Oh, I missed the silence of my Onyx hubs. It's interesting. This confirms my theory that I do use my tires for suspension a lot. That big Assegai, that 2.5, I run about 20-21 psi, and it provides suspension, it provides traction for steering, braking, and the fork does less work. I'm not feeling that effect on these wheels. The tire's not acting as suspension. There's not quite enough tire volume in these tires to do a whole lot of fine-tuning of the suspension properties of the tires. So I feel like the Cush Core's acting more as rim protection right now than suspension tuning like I do in my bigger tires. Hit a little drop here. I don't trust it. I don't trust the traction I need, front or rear. I think a pair of Icons and it'd be different in this terrain. It's still way more fun than most XC bikes because the Geo's good, but it totally has that nervous XC feeling where you just don't have traction, you're almost blowing all your corners. Tires are probably the most important thing you can get right on your bike. And my favorite tires will be different than yours because we ride in different places. And what's good here is not good in the Pacific Northwest and vice versa. I'm sliding, especially that back racing Ralph. Slippery. I'm definitely holding back. I mean, it wants to go fast because it rolls so good, but the traction is not there to stop if I need an emergency maneuver. And drifting all the corners is so scary. The speed is there though, holy cow. It makes boring trails exciting because I'm just at the raw limit. So it's no surprise that these tiny tires are slippery on this stuff, real slippery. They were stiffer, I was bouncing more, I had far less traction, far less braking traction, less rubber on the ground, and you definitely feel that. I was drifting so many more corners today than I normally do, which is fun until it isn't. It's been a super fun experiment. These are demo wheels I have to send back, and I'm sad about that because it'd be fun to keep a set of ultralight cross-country wheels and tires set up for when I go to Phoenix or Tucson or back east or visit places where you don't need a downhill tire. But for around here, for my all-around riding, I'd rather suffer a little bit more on the uphills to have perfect traction and more tire damping and suspension on the downhill. That was a fun experiment, and this bike rips with these little XC wheels on. Even though it's kind of an aggressive modern geometry bike, it could be really fun for a lot of people in flatter terrain with a wheel setup like this. If you learned something and thought this was interesting, consider becoming a patron to support this channel. You get access to patron-only meetups, you get access to patron-only content. I show a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that never makes it here on my channel, and that's where I do my custom bike consultation. So if you're wondering what bike you should get between A or B, or if you need suggestions or components on how to build it up, I save all of that advice for my paying patrons. I also do my stickers through Patreon, so if you want Hardtail Party stickers, that's the way to get them. Thanks for watching. There's a party in the mountains, and you're invited.